Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Louis Huard, Senior Product Manager at Plotly. Welcome to the Plotly 5.5 Product Release Webinar, Enhanced Enterprise Connectivity for Data Apps. Before I dive in, I wanted to draw your attention to the sidebar. There, my colleagues are standing by to answer your questions live. So please keep the questions coming. In this webinar, my colleagues and I are going to showcase some of the hard work that the Plot Legion have been focused on over the past few months that strengthens our market position as the world's leading provider of data application technology. This is your first time tuning in to one of our Plotly launch events, or even the first time hearing about Plotly. You might be wondering who we are to make that claim. Founded in 2013, Plotly has long been at the forefront of data visualization, innovation, and excellence. With a recent milestone of 500 million downloads of our namesake open source Python package, Plotly enters its teenage years with open source momentum that shows no signs of slowing down. The secret to our growth over the last decade is simple: listening to our users and customers. What they've told us: data and AI teams need to create and deploy custom data applications for their stakeholders with the right controls, self-service, and interactivity, but find their current tech falls short. Excel spreadsheets are too flexible. Data science notebooks are too restrictive. BI tools are rigid and read-only. Plotly Dash open source meets functional needs but is not enterprise ready. Plotly Dash Enterprise solves the last mile problem by providing data and AI teams the enterprise platform for creating and sharing customizable, interactive data applications with the right controls, data connectors, centralized management, and security integrations. By learning from the pain points of millions of Plotly and Dash developers from every continent, in every industry: finance, healthcare, energy, technology, for broad swaths of applications such as financial portfolio optimization, energy trading, customer segmentations, bioinformatics, predictive analytics, data engineering, machine learning, AI. Plotly has spent the last decade refining its open source libraries, and enterprise platform to give individuals and teams superpowers for performing analytics and visualization in code while vastly simplifying the process of authoring and publishing data apps so that everyone can participate. During our last release event, our co-founder, Chris Parmer, unveiled a major development milestone with the release of App Studio, an exciting hybrid and code UI experience that vastly simplifies the process of creating data applications without limiting the flexibility and control that is so special about our technology. Whether you have a formal title of data scientist, data analyst, ML engineer, or software engineer, or you're a student or professional that happens to perform analytics in the course of furthering their career, App Studio can help you and your team rapidly build beautiful, interactive data applications which go above and beyond what you are able to create with today's business intelligence stack. Over the next half hour, my Plotly colleagues, Matt Brown and Nathan Drezner, will walk you through some of the highest impact features which the team introduced to App Studio in our 5.5 release, which help further that vision, which helps users develop data apps with significantly more complex data volume and interactivity needs. Matt, I don't want to give too much away. The webinar stage is yours.
Hey everyone, I'm thrilled to walk you through a number of great features coming to Dash Enterprise and App Studio in 5.5. Let's take a look at what's coming in the latest release. First, we have data sources, which help you configure connections to popular data providers and run queries with SQL. The Run button prevents inadvertently running costly API calls. Scheduling, which increases app performance by caching data on an interval. And large data sets, showing data sets greater than 1,000 rows to your users. First up, let's talk data sources. Prior to 5.5, to establish a connection with a data provider, it was up to your application developers to use Python libraries to configure the connection. You'd end up writing the same code over and over in every application you develop, which adds time to the development process and maintenance hassle when you need to rotate a credential used in multiple applications. The new data sources feature lets you create these connections at the platform level, saving you development time and making it easier to update connections used across many applications. It also makes collaboration simpler by allowing you to grant access to teammates globally or on a user-by-user basis. In 5.5, you'll be able to connect to Databricks, Snowflake, Redshift, BigQuery, and AWS S3. And if you don't see the data provider you're looking for, stay tuned as we're adding support for Azure Data Lake and a generic SQL connector for services like MotherDuck and Postgres and more. Let's take the new data sources feature for a spin. Choose from one of the 5 data providers available, and you'll be taken to the configuration wizard. Enter the name for the connection and optionally add a description to help you identify it later. Then enter the credentials. Here we'll specify the host name and the path. Choose from one of the 2 authentication methods, a personal access token or an OAuth machine-to-machine connection. It's important to note that the credentials you provide will not be shared directly with users of this connection. They simply have access to the data. Once the credentials are entered, we can select the access level for this connector. Choose restricted if you only want certain users on the platform to have access, or choose authenticated to allow any platform user to use this data source. Once the connection is created, it will be displayed in a list, just like your applications. You can click into any of these connections, view and update configuration parameters, and even see an example code snippet showing you how to use the connection in a workspace. The code snippet uses a brand new module we're shipping with Dash Enterprise libraries called data_sources. With this library, all you need is a SQL statement and a data connection name to perform a query and return a data frame in your application. All of the authentication workflow happens under the hood, making it fast and easy to retrieve data in your app. To access data sources within an app, there's just one last thing we need to do. In the App Management panel, I have a new tab called Linked Data. In this tab, I can see a list of all the data sources that have been either created by me or shared with me. Pressing the plus icon next to any data source will link it and make it available in the workspace. Note that the workspace will restart, and then I'm ready to develop my app. But how do you know what data you have access to while working in your application? Well, in past releases, you needed to run API calls in your workspace to list the tables available to you. Or you'd need to have that data provider running in a separate browser tab that you can refer back to. And while functional, it kind of takes you out of the flow of the application development. And that's where the new Schema browser comes in. The Schema browser gives you a window into any connected data source. You can see all of the databases, schemas, and tables in a single view, inspect column names for a table, and even preview the data before you work with it. No more switching to another tab to find the table you need or accidentally mistyping the fully qualified table name when crafting your query. It's never been easier to find and use data within Dash Enterprise. So let's see this in action. In my workspace, in the left-hand toolbar, we have a new data source icon. Click that, and you'll see a list of linked data sources for this application. Clicking on a data source will load the list of database schemas, tables available to you, and clicking on a table name will open a panel at the bottom of the browser that lists all of the columns and column types for that table. Clicking any column name will copy it to the clipboard, which is pretty helpful when writing queries. And each table also has a context menu, allowing you to copy that fully qualified table name or open up a preview of the table right here in the workspace. The table preview will load several hundred rows of data, helping you understand the contents. When you're ready to write a query, simply press the copy code button, and the same snippet we saw earlier will be copied to the clipboard. The code snippet provided gives you a fully runnable query with a limit to prevent loading an entire table unless you really want to. The data frame returns just like any other data frame, and App Studio automatically picks it up and puts it in the app layout. The combination of data sources and the schema browser ushers in a new era for Plotly workspaces, letting you more easily explore your organization's data, write ad hoc queries, and use the results in your data app. Also included in 5.5 is App Studio's new Run button feature. First, a little context. In App Studio, anytime a user updates a control input, all dependent callbacks are run automatically. And this is great when you want to enable fast interactions between the control panel and your visualizations. But imagine for a moment that you have several form fields that need to be set to run a valid API call, or maybe that the API call itself is pretty expensive, and you don't want to run it every single time a user moves a slider. The new Run button addresses this problem by preventing callbacks from running unless explicitly requested by the user. When activated, anytime you make a change to an input, App Studio will wait until the user has pressed the Run button before fetching the data or running the control logic. This feature enables a whole new class of use cases that App Studio can address, and we're excited to see what you build with it. All right, I'll show you how it works. Simply toggle the Run button inside the app editor and resync, and now any downstream callbacks that rely on your control panel inputs will be gated by a button press. App Studio automatically wires everything together for you, so you don't have to write any code beyond the control flow you're already using in your application. And one last bit of polish we're introducing is that you'll now see loading indicators on any dependent data cards in your app when loading occurs. The last feature we're going to cover today is the scheduling feature. Have you ever needed to cache data in your app on a schedule? Well, maybe you have an expensive API call that populates a data frame in your application. You can't run it every time. And writing the caching logic by hand, well, it's repetitive and time-consuming. App Studio's scheduling feature detects code that makes sense to run on a schedule and caches the result on a frequency that you define without a single line of code. In the app editor, the new schedule panel offers simple form inputs for setting the schedule or the ability to use cron syntax. The results are cached and used anytime downstream dependencies reference the scheduled variable. This makes it easy to schedule updates on a predetermined interval and saves you the hassle of writing the equivalent code. In the app editor, we'll click on the calendar icon in the right toolbar, which opens the scheduling UI. First, notice that App Studio will tell you which variables are eligible for scheduling. Logic that populates these variables will be run on the determined schedule. You can choose from two scheduling options, interval and cron. Interval lets you choose a time zone and a repeat cadence with a simple dropdown. You'll see a preview of the next several runs to help you ensure the schedule is set appropriately. And if we instead use the cron mode, you can set the time zone and use cron syntax to define the schedule. Once we're happy with the schedule, we simply confirm it using the primary button below, and now the schedule has been set and we can easily disable it again if needed. And with that, I'll hand things over to Nathan, who's going to show you large dataset support in App Studio. Take it away, Nathan.
Thanks, Matt. Super excited about all that functionality to come to App Studio. I'm Nathan. I'm a product manager at Plotly, and I'll be talking about large table support in App Studio and Simplifies 5.5. So let's take a look at a project I've been working on in App Studio. In this project, I'm loading in a large data set, about 300 megabytes, and it comes from a CSV that I've uploaded into my workspace, and you can see it has almost 2 million records here. So this is a huge chunk of data. I'm slicing and dicing it plenty. I have a smaller version here where I'm grouping by different categories. This data shows Amazon purchases and purchase prices. I have another data set that shows slightly different group by. And I have a few charts that I'm using to show the purchase price over time. So I loaded this into App Studio in 5.4. It would load it up with a shortened data set, about 1,000 records. And this is because if you load a large number of rows into your browser, it could cause issues. You can't just send 300 megabyte files over the wire and expect everything to work okay. Now in 5.5 with App Studio, we have large dataset support, which means all of your tables that are loaded in as pandas data frames in your original notebook are automatically rendered, and you can enable large tables for those. So here's the App Studio app that was generated from this notebook. And you can see here's the charts that I have, and here are the data sets. And where previously you would see this would only have 1,000 records, In this case, you can see all 1.8 million. And this is a fully interactive table. I can page through. Obviously, paging through 1.8 million records is going to be a little tricky, but I can also search, sort, and filter. So let's look for all of the products that are coffee related. And let's sort to find the most expensive ones. So here's an automatic coffee center. Not 100% sure what that is. And there's more than 20,000 results that came up from this search that happened almost instantly. A large table support is backed by DuckDB, which enables this powerful search, sort, and filter capabilities. And it means it's really easy for end user application to work with these kinds of large data sets. Every table is configured with large data set support, which uses server-side pagination to grab only the records that you're showing on the screen and make sure that your page loads are really snappy in your deployed applications. So if you're using App Studio in 5.5, you can enable this by going into the control settings and flipping on the View Large Datasets toggle. That's it. If you want to disable it or truncate your datasets for some reason, that's always an option as well. And you can just flip that switch off. By default, it's disabled. So I want to make sure that folks are opting into this feature who want to show all of their data and make sure that everyone is viewing that. So I'm really excited about this feature, really excited to bring large dataset support to App Studio and all the users of App Studio, and excited to see the kinds of projects that this enables. Back to you, Matt.
Thanks, Nathan. Well, we hope you enjoyed taking a look at the exciting new features coming in App Studio 5.5. Here's a quick recap of what we just walked through. Data sources, making it easier to connect to popular data providers and manage those connections. The Run button, which prevents running application logic unless a button is pressed. The scheduling feature, which increases app performance by caching data on a set interval. And large datasets, showing larger datasets to your users than previously possible in App Studio. If you have any questions or feedback on the features you've seen today, don't hesitate to reach out to the product team here at Plotly. We're always eager to hear your thoughts. And with that, I'll hand it over to our next presenter. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Howdy, I'm Nathan.
Hello.
I'm a product manager at Plotly. And I'm joined here with Birk, who is a contributor and board member at MapLibre and was one of the primary contributors to the MapLibre integration with Plotly charts that we released into open source just last month. And we'll be rolling out as the primary tooling powering all the maps in Plotly charts over in the next major release of open source Plotly graphing libraries. So I'm really excited about the change. We've used Mapbox in Plotly since we originally introduced mapping trace types back in 2016, and now we're switching to MapLibre, and it's paving the way for some really exciting new features coming from MapLibre and all the amazing work that Birk and the rest of your team are contributing over there. So, what inspired you to get started contributing to Plotly, and how'd you get involved in the project?
So I got inspired to contribute to Plotly because I knew Plotly a bit. I was introduced to it back in 2017, if I remember correctly. At the time, I was doing a lot of Python work, machine learning stuff. It was pretty new at the time. And I was using Matplotlib and other static libraries and found that Plotly was just better. It's more, you could zoom, you had the interactivity, hover interactivity, all that. And yeah, I was pretty happy about it. And then I found last year this ticket. I noticed this ticket at Plotly that there was a user interest into upgrading from the Mapbox fork to the MapLibre. And I decided to reach out if I could help with that because having worked on Mapbox for a few years now, I knew the diff that was from the fork that was used at Plotly to where is MapLibre today. And knowing that diff makes it much easier to know what are all the pitfalls in doing such a migration, what is the capabilities today, like the change in feature sets and so on. So I got the go-ahead to do that and made this pull request to show that it's actually possible to do the integration. And it was well received, and there were some few adaptations that we figured out, and then the Plotly team took it from there.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest parts is figuring out naming. It's one of those
Absolutely.
classic hard problems in computer science, naming things. So, but yeah, we're really excited. Well, one exciting thing about this integration is we'll be able to follow the MapLibre roadmap. So, what are you working on over there? What's coming down the pipe in MapLibre?
Yeah, so maybe I can start saying just what has already been delivered with MapLibre. So there's some, for instance, full port to like TypeScript. Compared to the forum, there's already WebGL2 support with a fallback to WebGL1. So that is coming. That is already in Plotly with this. So, and that now we're working more on the like graphics engineering side of things. So we will very soon be releasing a globe support with the new version 5 pre-release, and there's the team is working really hard on that right now. And then there's also we're growing the team with more graphics engineering forces because we also have a request for more custom projections. That's the most requested feature right now in GLTS, and we hope to be able to deliver on that. So that's some exciting things, and then there's always a lot of interest in WebGPU, which we haven't really started working on yet, but it seems like it's inevitable at some point to move towards that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know our community should be really excited because just by upgrading the library, you basically take advantage of 4 years of development improvements to the underlying map stack that Plotly is using. So we've been pretty much stale with the way that our maps work, and you'll see performance improvements out of the box. The underlying library is obviously significantly modernized as you're describing, and one feature I'm really excited for is projection support. That's really cool.
Too.
And we have some projections in the Plotly charting library now, and I'd love to bring forward those to the next level with a MapLibre backed projection.
I completely agree. I work a lot with governments and data from countries all over Europe, and they all have everything in their custom local projections for their countries, and I have to convert all of it to the Mercator and be able to use it. So it's also something I'm super excited about, and the other projects I work on really need that. So yeah, absolutely.
It's gonna be sweet. I'm super excited. So both of these projects, MapLibre and Plotly, are open source. So what excites you about working in open source and contributing not just with core projects that you're involved in, but with other projects that you see in the field like Plotly?
I think open source is really great for a few reasons. It's great to have this collaborative environment where everybody can bring these contributions to like a shared foundation, so they can solve something for themselves, and then they can also solve it for anybody else who might hit the same issues later on. So that's amazing. So everybody ends up with having the best of both worlds to some extent, compared to if you sell something for yourself and another company sells something for themselves. Another thing is it's more resilient. So you're not really you have this functionality. It's not dependent on somebody necessarily earning money on it constantly. You have this functionality you have today. You can keep that and keep it running. So that's a really that's some main reasons.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, here at Plotly, we've had a massive benefit from community members contributing to the project, and we end up seeing huge variety of use cases that oftentimes we don't even expect. It's definitely one of my favorite parts of the job. So absolutely, like we love open source, and it's great to be able to integrate the latest changes from a project like MapLibre into Plotly. So if you're using Plotly libraries today, you can get started with MapLibre with pip install ---- upgrade. That's pretty much it. And if you're using the JavaScript libraries, you can also get set up with the latest changes. We have a migration guide available on our documentation. And you can also see a document which Birk and I co-wrote, which talks about some of the changes, how we thought about the API and some of the API changes here. And of course, some of those features that we're both really excited for in both MapLibre and then eventually in Plotly charts. So thank you so much for anyone who's using Plotly. Make sure to check out the MapLibre community and maybe make some contributions over there. So thanks, Birk. Yeah.
Happy to be here.
All right. And back over to the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Matt and Nathan. and to all the Plotly team members that worked hard over the past few months to make this release possible. It's always inspiring to see months of work come together. Over the last half hour, Matt and Nathan walked you through new features now available in App Studio, which enhance enterprise connectivity for data apps. For teams using App Studio, with this product launch, it's possible to build data applications that securely connect to the data sources your enterprise relies on and update that data at the frequency and granularity needed. You can build data applications with more data in memory than ever before in a Dash app, increasing the level of detail you can provide when building interactive, performant data applications that provide insights to stakeholders on your most critical business problems. If you have any questions about these features, we hope we've been able to answer them in the live chat. If there are any more questions you'd like to follow up on that you may not have gotten to post in the chat, please send us a note at sales@plotly.com. In our next product release webinar, we plan to walk you through more improvements to App Studio, our platform, and our libraries, which simplify the process of authoring and publishing beautiful interactive data applications so that everyone in your organization can participate. Stay tuned for the date. For our next release, we'll be integrating AI into our platform to radically lower the barrier to entry for building an application in code for Python beginners and accelerate the development process for experienced developers. AI models are evolving every day, and we want to make it possible for data application developers to harness this incredible technology. In addition, we'll be launching new features in App Studio, which help transform code experiences into UI experiences, enabling BI native users looking to feel more empowered to move away from building dashboards and start building data applications. We'd love to work with you to trial these features even before our next release. Please reach out to us if you're interested in learning more. On that note, I'd like to conclude this webinar by thanking you for spending your time with us this afternoon to learn more about our most recent product release. There are a lot of ways you could have spent the last 45 minutes, and we appreciate that you spent it with us. Have a nice rest of your day, and we hope to see you next time. Take care.